Well, that wraps up the October 2020 Revenue Estimating Conference. Thank you for joining us. Just joking. Welcome to the October 2020 Revenue Estimating Conference, and thank you for joining us. We had a little technical difficulty, but I think we are up and operating now. The number sheet that you all anxiously wait for, it will be on your screen when we get to that numbers portion of our presentation. A special thank you to Team Legislative Service Agency for arranging the live streaming. Those who are watching on YouTube, this will be commercial free and we have approved the contents. Furthermore, it's being recorded, so if you want to watch it later. Mr. Underwood is at an undisclosed location. Not really, he's actually at his residence in Clear Lake. Ms. Lyons and myself are socially distanced at the Capitol, even if it appears we're closer than we really are. The camera makes it look that way, but be assured we are within the guidelines. Now, those who are joining us for the first time, and a reminder for the veterinary seers, the Code of Iowa establishes a 3-member panel. Holly Lyons of the Legislative Service Agency represents the legislative branch, Dave Underwood, the state in general, and I'm the appointee of the governor and I represent the executive branch. The conference is required to meet at least 3 times a year, March, October, and December, but we may have special meetings as necessary, as we did in May. We are required to reach a consensus on a single number, not a range, but a single number that cannot be exceeded by the governor and the legislature. We independently develop our projections and we use a variety of sources, and we rely on the Iowa Department of Revenue for the most current activity. Reminder, the governor is required to submit her budget recommendations using the December estimate. The legislature is to use the lower of the December and March estimate. So the October meeting is more of an assessment of the economy 3 months into the fiscal year. The next estimate that has a legal impact will be in December. The state budget and accounting are based on a fiscal year, meaning the first month of the year is July and the last month of the year is June. Now today, we are updating the estimates for the current fiscal year 21, which started July 1st of 2020 and ends July 30th, 2021. And we will also be reviewing our estimates for fiscal year 22, which starts July 1st, 2021 and ends June 30, 2022. We are estimating 652 days of economic activity in the future, and that means 9 months for fiscal year 21 and 12 months for fiscal year 22. With that, I will entertain an approval of the agenda.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those say no. What is your pleasure for the minutes of the May REC meeting?
So moved.
I'll move to approve.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the May minutes. All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. No. Okay, it's approved. Now, what we'll do is we'll have comments through by each member, and then we will go through the numbers. We'll start out with Ms. Lyons, then Mr. Underwood, and I will follow. Holly.
Thank you, Dave. And again, I apologize to all of you that I apologize to all of you that have been waiting. Apologize for the technical problems. Technology is great when it works, and it's extremely frustrating when it doesn't. But anyway. Also, the difference sheet that Mr. Roeder referenced is out on our website right now under documents for the Revenue Estimating Committee. I believe the link was on the screen prior to the meeting, so you can find it there. All right, before discussing the current economy for fiscal year 2021 and 2022, I'd like to note that the fiscal year 2020 books are closed, and revenue came in just $6.1 million below the estimate made last May by the REC after adjustments for law changes in the June session. We missed the mark by less than 0.1% on a $7.9 billion budget, thanks largely to a huge federal assistance stimulus package that sent direct payments to many Iowans, provided increased unemployment benefits to those that lost jobs due to the pandemic, and provided a payroll assistance program for businesses. Now we need to face the nearly impossible, reevaluating our fiscal year 21 and 22 projections in light of several things, including a continuing pandemic with no definitive end in sight, drought in some areas of the state, an unusual and very damaging derecho last August, a highly contentious election season, and current political gridlock in Washington that has reduced the chance of another much talked about federal stimulus package from happening anytime soon. How do you adjust to an ever-changing situation where the new normal seems to be indefinite uncertainty? Currently, so many systems aren't working as they normally do, which means a radical shift in work, school, and home life for all. And I would be remiss to not say that the COVID-19 pandemic continues to take a very personal toll on Iowans in addition to the economic impact. Looking at fiscal year 21, the current fiscal year, let's review some of the economic indicators. Unemployment rates peaked in Iowa last April at 11%, but the latest rate is 6%, as more than half the jobs lost have been added back. But slow job growth is expected and will be some time before Iowa sees the record low unemployment rates of 2.8% experienced last year at this time. Iowa initial unemployment claims are still 2 to 3 times higher than that experienced over the last several years. Federal stimulus money bolstered Iowa income and sales tax, and while retail sales are down, they are nowhere near the low levels of the last recession. E-commerce has seen a big jump as a result of retail sales, and while some industries in Iowa, such as hotels, restaurants, bars, and entertainment venues, have been hit especially hard in terms of sales, there has been substantial growth in other classes, such as building materials and specialty retail, with the derecho damage and subsequent repair partly responsible for the jump in building materials. And the switch for many to working from home has been responsible for the growth in the outfitting of home offices. Crop prices are not doing as well as they had been, but the bottom isn't falling out. The derecho impact on the harvest is still unknown, but the latest estimate by the USDA is that the corn crop will be reduced by 550,000 acres, and much of that may be covered by insurance or federal disaster payment. The recent Iowa Business Condition Index climbed to 56.4 after bottoming out at 37.5 in the first quarter. Anything over 50 indicates expansion, and 4 components were strong: new orders, production, sales, and delivery time. Employment and inventories are still showing weakness. Like the US economy, the Iowa economy won't truly get back on track until the pandemic is over, or at least until a viable COVID vaccine or therapeutic treatment is available and widely distributed. A surge in the virus may also further damage the economy. Meanwhile, the economy has been kept afloat by the unprecedented level of economic support through federal fiscal and monetary policy. It remains to be seen if that will be enough to weather the economic storm. If it is, we should expect a slow and positive recovery over the next 18 months, and the LSA estimates reflect that. Currently, through last week, general fund revenue for fiscal year 21 was up $120 million, or nearly 8% compared to last year, thanks to the big boost due to federal stimulus money and withholding income from unemployment payments. The LSA fiscal year 21 projection calls for $65 million in growth for the entire year, which is less growth in net revenue than is already in the bank through October 9th. Fiscal year 22 doesn't start for 9 months. The LSA fiscal year 22 estimate calls for a level of growth that is below that experienced in 11 of the past 19 years. The recovery from past recessions has always resulted in solid revenue growth, and we should expect the recovery from this recession to do the same. Unlike many states, Iowa is in a strong financial position, ending fiscal year 20 with a surplus and reserve funds that are at the statutory maximum. Our unemployment rate is currently the 12th lowest in the nation. We're in a position to weather an even tougher economic storm if necessary. At the October meeting, we always say, we'll know more by December. And I can't emphasize that enough this time around. This was our first hard look at fiscal year 22. And hopefully in 2 months, there will be more clarity on a number of fronts, including the election, whether the existing federal fiscal and monetary response to the recession brought on by the pandemic has been sufficient. And hopefully we'll have more information on the timing of a vaccine or therapeutic treatment for COVID-19. We will also have 2 more months of economic and revenue data to review prior to setting the estimate that the governor and the legislature must use in preparing and adopting the fiscal year 22 budget.
Thank you very much. Mr. Underwood.
Okay. Well, thank you, Holly. That's a great summary of where we're at. I'm going to pull out one that I've been using for quite a few meetings now. In spite of unemployment claims in Iowa, there's still help wanted signs all over the place, which is great to see. And these aren't signs that have just been left up. These are new signs as well that are appearing all over the place. Driving around this last weekend and the prior couple of weeks just to see what's actually going on in different parts of North Iowa, I've been amazed at the number of construction projects that I see. And I've been amazed at the types of businesses that are actually adding to their buildings and expanding. And the adaptability of Iowa's businesses and nonprofit organizations to adapt to the new abnormal, it's just been tremendous. And organizations that I was really worried about how they were going to survive have done amazingly well. And donors that support these organizations understand that they needed help. And a lot of people wrote a lot of additional checks. I mean, it's the resiliency of Iowans is amazing under these circumstances. And then throw in a big windstorm in central Iowa to see if we could really mess us up. As long as you didn't need electrical outlets, you survived quite well. So, and it's quite amazing what we've gone through. The question becomes in my mind is 2 big ones. When does that vaccine get here? And how quickly can we get it out to our people? It's certainly going to open up those of us that are on the upper edge of the age scale. I mean, that's keeping a lot of people out of things. And that will let the rest of us get together again and see each other face to face. That, as well as getting this election over so that we can maybe figure out at least where we're headed. I think that's going to have a major impact as well. So be interested to see what the governor's office thinks about this as well.
David, thank you for always your insightful comments. You know, when we met last time, we were just beginning to see the negative financial impact of the virus, but the full extent was not known, and it's still not known. If that wasn't enough, we participated in the duration, which Holly and David mentioned, and some of us hadn't even heard of such a thing before. We saw the horrible impact of the event, but at least the storm had an ending to it. We don't know the ending for the pandemic yet. Now, since our last REC meeting, the nation and Iowa's economy opened up and is starting to grow. Business is growing again. Iowa jobs are coming back, albeit a little slower pace than we would like. And as Mr. Underwood pointed out, there are still many businesses looking for workers. Economic fundamentals are also starting to show modest signs of strength. Our financial institutions, banking, insurance, and credit unions are strong, and an unprecedented $6 billion has been put into Iowa's economy through federal programs to help businesses in operation and allow them to start to recover. Places of worship are open under safety guidelines. Children are back in school, sort of, and school-related activities are moving back to a small degree of normalcy. Iowa State Cyclones are 3-0 in the Big 12, and Iowa Hawkeyes and UNI Panthers are so far undefeated this season. So there's room for all kinds of optimism, but we also have challenges. Many Iowans are still going through some tough economic challenges. We still have several folks that are unemployed. Agriculture was being challenged prior to the pandemic, and along came the derecho and didn't make matters any better. In early March, people in the US began testing positive for COVID-19. The CDC guidelines recommended a near shutdown of all but essential services, and commodity market demands were nearly zeroed out by the closure of schools, restaurants, bars, and reduced demand for ethanol had a devastating impact on our agricultural products. However, as Mr. Underwood pointed out, that federal assistance and crop insurance have helped ease some of the financial burden. There's still a supply chain disruptions, which I believe are holding back the US economy from recovering even quicker. So the question remains, I think the key is at what pace will the economy re-energize and rebound from a pandemic that refuses to leave us or be vaccinated away? All wonder when our lives are going to get back to normal, but maybe better yet, how are we even going to define normal? There are no economic models of what happens when a pandemic closes an economy, and as it opens up, 140-mile-per-hour winds cross the state, destroying 850,000 acres of the Iowa's harvest. The question is, how fast will we recover and to what level? And honorable people can disagree on answering the question. But what you've heard from all three of us, we believe that we are on the rebound and heading in the right direction. It's just how quickly we can get there. So let's go through the numbers. If you can put the chart up where the numbers are. Hey, there we go. And if you might need to, can you bring him in a little closer? Size it a little bit better there. Yeah, there we go. I think we can do it. All right, just to remind you and also those who haven't been with us before, when you see the first group that is numbers that starts out fiscal year 19, fiscal year 20, where you can see those are actuals and then the percentage. And then in the first box, you will see an REC FY21. That was our estimate on May 29th. The next grouping is the Legislative Services Agency representative, who they have both FY21 and FY22 estimates. And the next grouping is the governor's appointee of the executive branch, which has FY21 and FY22. So when we go through the numbers, you need to compare all three boxes together, but make sure that you compare under the Legislative Service Agency as well as the governor's appointee. So when you get clear to the right where it says comparison, anything that is in looks like a negative, but in parentheses, that means that that number is higher than what the governor's recommendation or the governor's appointee's estimate is. So a positive number shows the governor's appointee, and I don't mean it the way it's going to come out. The negative number is the legislative service agency. So I'll tell you what, if you can go to the 8 where it says over to the V, clear up at the top, the V, the U and the V. Numbers are, there we go. Very good. Now let's go over to HE. HE. There we go. Okay, I think all the numbers should be good there. Thank you very much. All right. So these are the numbers, and I think what we'll do is, Holly, we want to start with you and give your thoughts as to why you folks came up with the numbers you came up with, and I'll say why we came up with the numbers we came up with, and then we'll have David tell us which one's right.
All right, thank you. As you can see on the spreadsheet, there's quite a difference between our numbers and the governor's appointees' numbers. Ours are, we're very confident that the economy is coming back slowly. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, Dave, but it looks like your 21 number is pretty much what it was at the last RAC.
That's correct.
Okay. We think that there will be some growth from looking at it last May through now. We're just confident that we're experiencing current growth, and we think it's going to continue. The discrepancy there, I mean, it's what, 1-2% difference, not even, almost 2% difference, I guess, between us. And there's a bigger difference than in the following year, but again, that's because we're working from a higher base, you're working from a lower base, so then the discrepancy gets larger. I'm open to discussion. Again, I think it's such a wild time. It's going to be hard to estimate this now.
Yeah. Thank you. Where we were having our biggest challenge was in the corporate area. That we believe that corporations will be doing okay, but what we were having a hard time trying to figure out is what they may do with the tax changes at the federal level, whether or not they will try to recognize more of a loss in the current fiscal year as well as the next fiscal year. Obviously, corporate income tax is always more difficult to project because they have flexibility over a three-year period of time. And so that's why our number, frankly, stayed where it did, because we were thinking that would be the biggest impact. We also believe that our personal income, we did not move that all that much because 19 came in just a little bit less than what we had internally, what we had projected. David, thoughts?
Well, there's one thing that relates, for instance, to personal income tax is that there is a significant state legislative reduction in anticipated receipts. You've both got that included in there, but that does tamper a little bit the growth that we would normally see. Corporate is, of course, harder to predict because it takes longer to get all those returns in. So our 21 months that we're looking forward to is really a much longer time frame than that, even to realize the actual results. So to me, I think that you both have growth recognized, but it comes to a matter of what is it really going to look like in December when those estimate payments start coming in early January. I think that could turn quite a bit right there. And I think that's one area where between the two of you, your estimates are maybe a little bit different. It's not a huge number of dollars, but definitely that's part of it, as well as the final returns and refunds. So, looking at the actual difference on personal income tax for fiscal year 21, taking into account the refunds, you're $102 million difference, even though it doesn't necessarily look that large. It only shows up as on the sheet that we're looking at about 57 million difference, but the refunds take that up to about 100 million. Sales tax, thank goodness you both agree there quite well. And corporate after refunds is at about 76 difference in 76 million difference. So the two major ones, personal income tax, corporate income tax, you're about $180 million difference. And then you net out some of the other smaller ones, it comes down to the $151 million. So somewhere in there, there's plenty of adjustments in either one of those two major personal income tax or corporate income tax that could make either one of you two correct, actually.
That's a happy thought.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so unknown at this point in time. And we really, corporate, we won't know at all, and until actually 2022 before we get enough returns processed to know the final results. But I would suggest that we just take that 150 and divide it in half for right now. Whoever,
Yeah, I
Okay,
add it to the governor's number or subtract it from the LSA number, whichever you prefer.
I agree with you, David. I think it makes some sense to split that 151 in two. I would suggest that maybe we start with the LSA column and take that off of our corporate number. Take about 75, 76 million off of our corporate. Or I'm also amenable to taking some off of corporate and some off of personal income. I really don't think it matters right now where it's coming from, but I understand if we want to distribute it.
I'm agreeable to that as well. It doesn't really matter where we take it. Obviously, we're going to be back in December. We want to be as accurate, obviously, as we possibly can, as we are planning for the next fiscal year. But
well,
do you have a,
yeah, let me.
Well, we can start with if you want to move the LSA number.
Yeah.
Okay.
Move the LSA number with, and I'd like to suggest maybe we go back to the REC estimate for corporate, so 748. And then take the remainder of that 75 million adjustment out of personal income tax.
What do you think, David?
Now that would work fine for me.
And it works for me. So I'll take that as a motion.
Yes, I move that we start with the LSA column.
Do you want to?
I move that we take the LSA column for fiscal year 21, reduce our corporate income tax number to 748.4 to match the REC estimate of last May, and then take the balance of the different, take 151 divided by 2, take the balance then out of personal income.
It has been moved. Do I hear a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Okay, before we leave that, so from the May estimate, Jeff, we have increased it by how much?
Yeah, I threw him a curve.
Oh, okay, all right.
So we need to give him a minute.
We'll get, sorry.
I should have done that.
That's it.
How much came out of corporate income tax? Corporate goes to 740. Yeah, goes down.
We are checking each other's calculators to make sure we're getting the right numbers.
Should have just.
Don't touch your screen. We'll be ready to go here in a minute.
$55.6 come out of the,
Yes.
out of the
Corporate,
corporate.
Yes.
And the whole thing was supposed to be negative 70.
75. It's 1.8, that you said, get it split. So I brought it down. That's fine.
Sorry, I gave you an algebraic equation as
Yes,
opposed
you
to
did.
just a.
It's 20.2 to come out of the income tax. I hope.
Yes. 7, 9,
You did.
okay.
yeah.
Again, sorry.
All right, nope, it's good. All right, so from the May estimate, we went up how much?
I think 74.2.
70,
No,
That's from the adjusted,
that's the adjustment we have talked about, so
which is
from the May estimate, we went up 33.
33.1 million. Okay. So are you ready to do a calculation from
35.
FY
I'm
20?
sorry, I said about 35.
35.1.
35 from the May estimate.
Which is a growth of negative 0.2% for the year.
Point two,
Negative 0.2.
negative 0.2. Okay, and so from FY 20, FY 21, based on that estimate, you're saying it's a minus 0.2.
Minus 0.2 is at minus $18.9 million, which is negative 0.2%.
Okay, that's tax adjustment. Okay,
David,
yes,
could you please repeat net receipts plus transfers for fiscal year 21, new number from LSA?
did you hear that?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on one second, David.
Fifth step.
Okay, so it would be David, it would be 7,911,000,000.7.
Okay, thank you. I think you need to turn your mic on when you talk, because otherwise we get a lot of echo.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, anything else on that? Okay, now let's switch to FY 22. We can stick with the, want to stick with LSA's column.
I think that's easier for
Yes.
the numbers.
And how would you like to split it this time?
I'm gonna go very carefully here.
David, comments about 22?
Well, actually, yes, I do. What's quite interesting is that between personal income tax and corporate income tax, net of refunds, both are off about $107 million. Sales tax, you're within $2 million, unbelievably. So, I mean, to me, that's really it. The difference is we're $214 million. We show here on the sheet because of some of the other minor differences, 236.7 million. I didn't see anything that other than LSA is a little bit more aggressive on growth. I would say we take to simplify it so that we don't need quantum mathematics to do this. We take half of $200 million, which is just $100 million, and split that equally between personal income tax and corporate income tax, and reduce LSA 50 million on each of those two, and go with that.
Holly, thoughts?
I can support that.
You guys got those numbers?
I believe that comes down to a final net receipts plus transfer number for fiscal year 22 of 8230.8 and 4% growth for 22.
That's an increase dollar-wise, Jeff.
309. The increased dollars over the new 21 estimate is 319.1 million.
Very good. Questions, comments from colleagues?
Nope, I can support that.
Okay, David, I'll take that as a motion.
Yes, that is my motion.
Okay, I'll second that.
Okay.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Those opposed, say no. Motion carries. All right. Let's move to the fiscal years 21 and 22 gambling revenues, transfers, and other funds. As you can see, we are the same on those.
I would move those numbers.
It's been moved and David's been moved. You willing to second?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor of the gaming revenues and transfers, say aye.
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 Those opposed, say no. Motion carries. Okay, do we have any other business coming before us? Sure we got everything?
Good.
All right, let's, mainly for our friends in the media, because I know these numbers, they want to get these accurate. Can we do a recap on 21 and 22, just to make sure everybody hears it right? Jeff, if you would mind, turn on your microphone.
Yes, sir. For fiscal year 2021, the new net receipts plus transfer line is 7,911.7. 7,911.7. That is growth over the last year, over actual 2020 of negative $18.9 million and negative 0.2%. The new fiscal year 20, or the original fiscal year 2022 estimate is 8,230,000,000.8. That's additional revenue above the 21 estimate of 319.1 million and 4.0%.
And you might want to explain from the from the May estimate in FY '21 is that there were reductions there were tax adjustments after the REC met, which, go ahead.
Yeah, the REC met on May 29th and the legislature met afterwards, and the law changes enacted after that May 29th REC estimate a total an estimated negative $39.1 million. So the balance sheet that the legislature worked with was the REC estimate minus $39.1 million.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else? Okay, very good. Well, thanks to my colleagues, Holly and Dave, and thanks for all of you who have stuck with us. Sorry for the technical difficulties, but those things happen. Big thanks to Department of Revenue for their assistance, Team LSA in getting this all together, Team Department of Management for all their time and efforts in putting this together. With that, we will deem ourselves adjourned. Thank you. See you in December.